Hello, welcome to the Learning Playlist, a podcast for the major and general education courses under the tutelage of Mr. Ryan Dave Ryla, USJR College Instructor. This project is a supplement to the said courses and as a means to share knowledge to the public at large. To help the podcast grow, kindly follow us at facebook.com/the learning playlist. And now, on to our show. Hello, and welcome to another lecture on comparative politics. Today we're going to talk about the Global South. Now, to begin this presentation, I would like to highlight three talking points that we're going to cover for this morning. First, let's talk about what is the Global South and what are its implications. Then, let us proceed towards talking about comparative politics and why and what do we compare in this subject. Also, we're going to talk about your first workshop for the semester. Okay, so what is the Global South? Well, in short, the Global South is often associated with underdevelopment, and as such, underdevelopment has many implications as to how we use this concept. Primarily, the Global South may refer to parts of Asia, Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East that were former colonies and have now been labeled as developing countries. And as developing countries, the Global South often has many undertones, not only associated but often used synonymously with it. For example, the old concept of the third world, which stems from Alfred Sauvey's 1952 essay, wherein he outlined that the world is actually divided into three worlds. No, the first world, the democratic and largely capitalistic Western countries of Europe and then the United States. And then there's also the second world, the communist states, primarily the USSR and its satellites and allies. And then you have the third world, which are newly independent country, at least from the time of Alfred Sauvey, that were largely unaligned to either first or second world. In any case, the Global South has been a concept that has many meanings and primarily contested, but we can often associate it primarily with underdevelopment, and it is often also contrasted with Europe. So, when we look at the Global South, when we think about its many connotations, largely it is used as a concept to highlight persisting differences between the Western states and non-Western states, no, European states and non-European states primarily. Um, well, of course, with the exception of the United States. Now, when we look at the origins of the term Global South, we often associate it with colonialism and imperialism, and it's a concept primarily used today to denote geopolitical relationships. However, it is a concept that has its origins stemming from the geopolitics of the old colonial empires of Europe. Okay. So when we talk about the Global South, I highly recommend that you read Why Nations Fail, which is a book by Daron Acemoglu and James A. Robinson. Now, in this book, Professor James A. Robinson and Professor Acemoglu, actually talk about the many factors as to why a country is successful and why some countries have devolved into failed states. Now, to introduce you to the bulk, or rather to the core of their thesis, I highly recommend that you click on the link provided here. Okay, so this will lead you to a TED Talk from 2014 held in Athens, and one of the authors, Professor Robinson, actually summarizes it in about 10 to 14 minutes. He actually summarizes the book. So I want you to check out the arguments of Professor Robinson, as this is also crucial to our discussions in the coming lectures. Okay. Now, why and what do we compare? Now we understand where the concept of the global south is coming from. And of course, I presume that by this time already you have also watched, no, you have also watched the documentary, or rather not the documentary, but the TED Talk of Professor Robinson on why nations fail. Now, as comparativists, as those who engage in comparative politics are known, as comparativists, why do we look for comparisons? And most importantly, what do we look for? What do we compare in the first place? Well, when we use the comparative method, which is the prime method that we are utilizing in this course, we look at comparisons in terms of the processes and the outputs of political systems. Now, by no means is this something new. Rather, this has been part of the arsenal of many philosophers who came before the formal establishment of political science as an academic discipline in the late 1800s. So, in this regard, this has ancient underpinnings, and many have already compared political systems, especially how these political systems operate, how they create laws, for example, how they deal with many aspects of politics on that is usually happening within the main arena of politics, which is the state. So they compare many parts of the state, and or not simply many parts of the state, but many they compare many aspects of the state that talks about, or rather that highlights the processes of politics, no. So when we look at, or when we use the comparative methods as comparativists in political science, we tend to compare the different processes and outputs. Okay, so there's an excellent quote here from Alexis de Tocqueville. He is also a prolific writer, and as well as someone who is considered as a great forebearer of those who study in politics. No, so Alexis de Tocqueville actually made a comment in one of his books. I believe he made this in one of his famous works on democracy. No, when he was observing America in its infancy, the United States, that is. Alexis de Tocqueville mentions that without comparisons to make, the mind does not know how to proceed. And this is very telling of why we compare in the first place. We compare simply because we need to to draw parallels, and to understand that these parallels also give us insights as to how political systems work. And mind you, many political systems, or rather all political systems, do not work alone. They are also affected by other political systems, as highlighted by thinkers such as Almon Gabriel, and then by many other thinkers as well as Dalton, etc. Those who have delved into the field of comparative politics, that is. The idea of comparison is simply that we need to draw parallels. We need to understand that states do not stand alone, and that states are not monolithic, but they are very complex entities that have that have very that have various functions that that actually provides it with life per se. No, you can think of states as um, a being with anatomy, no, with anatomy. It is something that has parts. Can we dissect states? We can look at it piecemeal, no. So we can use that. So comparisons help us understand how states operate and what is going on inside states. So the study of comparative politics is basically the study of politics in foreign countries. Forgive me for the error in the PowerPoint. So the study of politics in foreign countries, and primarily we look at domestic or internal politics, in contrast to international relations that is concerned with external politics or the politics among states. We are looking at the politics within states primarily. So the benefit of all of this the benefit of this method of comparison is that we understand politics within a political system, but of course we are helped with the tools and concepts of this subfield of political science, which we will be introducing along the way as we go through the semester. Okay. So for the workshop of this class, the workshop is actually available now on your Brightspace LMS, and it will be available until the 10th of September. And the template is actually embedded in the LMS already, so you can call this slash workshop slash quiz, for example. Now, the general topic is on the Global South, and of course, I need you to watch Why Nations Fail. Okay, so there are links as well to the resources that you can use to complete the workshop. And I've already given you the resources, so kindly please browse through them, read the material, absorb the material, internalize it, and then I would expect that you would submit your workshop promptly before the deadline on September 10th. Okay. So with that, I leave you with food for thought, with something to for your mind to work on as as a parting message. And this one is from Lee Kuan Yew, the fabled father of Singapore. A nation is great, not only a nation is great not by its size alone. It is the will, the cohesion, the stamina, the discipline of its people, and the quality of their leaders which ensure it an honorable place in history. And with that, thank you, and I'll see you next time.